It's right there in the title. Fire Emblem Engage is meant to engage people that have maybe been on the periphery of Fire Emblem, which has become a massive franchise for Nintendo. There's been a lot of really great Fire Emblem content already on Nintendo Switch. Three Houses is a phenomenal game, but Fire Emblem Engage goes back to the roots. And while I was playing this game, I absolutely was transported back to the days of discovering this franchise on the Game Boy Advance, particularly when I was playing Engage on the Nintendo Switch OLED, where this game absolutely explodes off of the screen. This is by far the most beautiful Fire Emblem game that I have ever played. It's a nice fusion of all of these anime-inspired characters and this three-dimensional tactical strategy combat that evokes the fundamentals, the classic sort of rock, paper, scissors, going into battle as these different types of characters and seeing who's got the skills and the weaponry to come out the victor. And it's so addictive. That is true of every Fire Emblem game, every core Fire Emblem experience, because we've seen Fire Emblem move off into other directions like the Fire Emblem Warriors, which has felt a little bit incongruous for me because this is a game about thinking. It's like chess come to life. And I love the whole setup here. I love I'm talking about Fire Emblem in general, but definitely that applies to Fire Emblem Engage. But I love the whole idea of trying to outwit your opponent. It's all about sort of outwitting the NPC, the computer, and the computer is very savvy and very well outfitted with a whole host of different unit types. And what you do in this game is you awaken as the lead character. Mine's called Batwing. You're a divine dragon, and you discover that your mother has these incredible properties, and you've been sleeping for 1,000 years, which is when this evil fell dragon has been trapped. And now the fell dragon has arisen, and in this land called Elios, you are moving from kingdom to kingdom, and you see that there are corrupted characters all across the land that you have to fight and battle with, and then there are henchmen of the fell dragon and people that have sort of fallen under the spell of the fell dragon at various levels of expertise and power that you will have to topple. But luckily, in addition to your own combat powers, you also have these emblems, which are classic Fire Emblem characters imbued into these rings. And so the big sort of overarching story here is everybody in Elios is chasing all of these emblem rings to take control of these different powers that these rings provide, which are all identified by classic Fire Emblem characters like Marth and Ike and a whole bunch of other ones if you've been playing Fire Emblem games over the years. And along the way, you are going to encounter a whole host of different allies. And really, the story is a conduit to picking up as many of these cool characters with different abilities. Some will have flying horses, some will have monsters that you'll battle, or dragons that they'll be riding. Some will be outfitted with incredible armor and shields that will be very, very tough to fight against, and also when they're on your team to defeat. And you'll also find people that are very good with daggers, that might have poison abilities or magic spells. And so what you do every time you head off into each of the different subsequent battles in the story is you try to determine which of the characters, and you'll have a whole host of different characters, to take out in a battle for you to have the best outcome with. And that's easier said than done because you kind of have to pick against all of your babies because you really care about the characters in Fire Emblem. That's been true across this franchise. Now, what you can do in this game, as opposed to earlier Fire Emblem games, is you can keep them alive. Because in Fire Emblem games of yore, once your character dies in a battle, they're gone forever. Now, you can choose to play the game that way if you want to, but you can also choose to have them just go back to the Somniel, which is your headquarters, and then they'll be ready for you for the next battle. I'll talk about the Somniel in a second here. What you can also do in this game to kind of make things a little bit easier for you, thank you, Fire Emblem developers, is you have a time crystal which allows you to go back to any decision that you have made along the way, and they're all sort of marked for you. And so if you do die, or if your main character dies, in my case Batwing, then you've lost the round, and you can choose to sort of end the game there if you want to, but you can go back on the time crystal and decide to pick it up from a decision that went awry and then start over from that vantage point, which is really cool, so you don't have to start the whole battle all the way over again. So of course I took advantage of that. And of course, I took advantage of all of the outfitting and the improvements that you can collect while you go back to the Somniel, which is this big floating base of yours. And you can go fishing there. You can go off and do trial battles, which is really cool. You can even create a battle map and share it with people, which is amazing. But then, of course, you can buy vulneraries, which are the health bottles that you'll need. I use them a lot, which you can give to each one of your characters. And you can collect a whole bunch of stuff in your convoy, which your main character has access to. And anytime you're on the battle grid, any character that's next to your main character has access to that convoy as well. So if they don't happen to have a weapon or a spell or those ever handy vulneraries ready for them, they can go to the convoy and put them into their inventory and then heal up if need be. And of course, you can purchase and outfit and upgrade weapons. You can even engrave things into them. And you can also cruise around and talk to the animals that you've adopted as you've traversed through Elios and encountered animals everywhere. They come back to the Somniel and you can have them out grazing. And there's lots of these power-ups that create a better relationship with each of the different characters, because that's what this game is as well. It's not just collecting these characters, it's also getting to know them a little bit, their idiosyncrasies, their desires. You can give them gifts, and then they will become better allies with you when they're on the battlefield. And there is a little bit of cheering them on and inspiring them as the leader. You've got to gain their respect and their trust, especially if you're all going to go and face your doom together, which is great. You'll spend a lot of time in the Somniel, but really the meat of the game is these exquisite battles, which do take place in 3D, and so you can pivot the camera around. And one of the cool things is that after you've completed the battle and hopefully stayed alive, you can also cruise around in 3D to a degree in some of these structures, you know, some devastated cities or some cool fields or a beach or whatever. You can kind of explore them in 3D as your character and go up and talk to each of the characters that you've encountered, and you keep accumulating as part of your team. Listen, I love this game. I think it's phenomenal. I don't think it's maybe quite as ambitious as Three Houses was. I think that whole, you know, Harry Potter-esque storytelling, which got a little convoluted and a little bit crazy. This one does too, but this one also feels a lot more straightforward, and the storytelling is a little on the melodrama side. I played this game like in just huge chunks. It was just coming at me. I didn't take any breaks, and I think that's part of the secret to Fire Emblem. It's like you don't want to just have it just coming at you all the time. You want to kind of relax a little bit and then go back to it. But the battles is where it's at. They're so damn fun, and it was great to jump in after you get past a certain chapter. You can jump into the trials and be challenged that way as well. And there's some multiplayer functionality, which is so freaking cool. There is a ton in this game, and so you really learn the intricacies of each of your battle units, and you care for them. And of course, there's some amiibo support, and all of that threading to all of these classic Fire Emblem characters is going to keep longtime Fire Emblem fans very happy. But as the title implies, this is a great starting point. If you've never played a Fire Emblem game, I wouldn't suggest you start with Three Houses, or, you know, frankly, any of the other ones. If you have a Nintendo Switch and Fire Emblem looks interesting to you, and I can guarantee you that you're going to dig it if you give it the time, this is a great starting point. I'm going to give Fire Emblem Engage a 9 out of 10.